Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Boss Women Network podcast, where we share stories of powerful women who lead, heal, and build with purpose. I'm your host, Leilani, and today's guest embodies resilience, courage, and grace. Joining us today is Miss Rachel Tamillio, a woman who has spent over 20 years helping others live purposely while overcoming her own extraordinary challenges. She's a business mentor, health advocate, and passionate supporter of women stepping into their fullest potential. So, Rachel, welcome to the show.
Thank you,
How are
Leilani. It's great to be here.
All right, it's so great to have you as well. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. You've spent 10 years in the corporate world and over 20 years as an entrepreneur. What were some of the biggest lessons that helped you shape the woman and mentor you are today?
That is a loaded question right off the top. First of all, again, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for inviting me to your show. Um, so biggest lesson learned, there's many of them. The importance of boundaries and self-care, the value there is in doing one's own research, especially when it comes to health, and
Mm,
the mindset that is necessary to keep moving forward in the face of tremendous opposition and adversity, as well as just the different challenges that life can bring. As you know, I had a major health crisis that it's miraculous that I lived through 20 years ago, and that is what put me on my path towards helping people feel more empowered to make decisions. At first, it was just about health, but then it expanded out to really every area of life, which is where the holistic um, descriptor of what I do comes in. Um, and so it continues to be just a lifelong journey of many lessons. Um, I'll never stop learning. I don't think any of us will.
yeah, life is about learning and forever learning. We'll be learning until we leave this place.
Yeah.
If you don't mind sharing, what was that health challenge that you went through? I think you said surviving cancer on your.
Yes, correct. The story really begins before that, though.
Mm,
I had been leading a very busy life. I was working full time in the corporate world, and I was serving part time, some weeks full time, in a church as well. And between the two, I was extremely run down, extremely stressed.
mm,
And the model that was before me, meaning the way I was raised, is that you do what you do and you just keep pushing through. And especially, when you're doing the things you're doing for the benefit of other people and
mm,
in service to God, there's really nothing else to do. You just keep pushing forward. There's always a need. There's always people who can benefit from what you have. And so, how can you slow down? How can you say no? This is what was modeled for me growing up with parents that were both full time ministers. It's what I knew, it's all I knew. And
mm,
so, I fell into that same pattern. And eventually, um, in my own personal time, my own prayer life, I just was continuing to feel like something, I need to do this differently. I'm not sure what I can do or how I can change what I'm doing because what I felt was everybody needs me to do the things that I'm doing. And again, they're all good things. It's all a plate full of wonderful. And so I felt stuck. I felt trapped. And I didn't know how to break that cycle. Everybody around me was doing the same thing. So who could I go to? Who could I trust with this story of, I know that I'm doing what's good and even what's right, but it's too much. It's too much for me to carry, and I don't know how to change this. Who could I go to with that? And God in his infinite wisdom literally sent me someone that acted as that uh, mentor or coach, literally someone I never knew and would never see again. But I just felt this unmistakable pull, nudge, whatever you want to call it, to speak to him and tell him where I was at. And he echoed what I was feeling, which is I need to back off and I need to trust that the things that I'm holding together and all the people that I'm supporting will be supported and will do what they have to do without me, at least for a season. It took a tremendous amount of trust, faith, um, and courage. I was scared. I was worried about how it would be received when I would say that I need to stop or pull back or whatever the case was, and I wasn't sure at the time. And looking back, I know that the next thing that happened would have been much worse for me had I not decided to make this decision. And so, long story short, I took a sabbatical from all things. I was still working full time, but in terms of my service at the church, that took a complete turn or stop. I stopped everything. I even stopped, this was the most radical thing at the time. I even stopped attending the church,
Wow.
which was huge because, again, my parents were both full-time ministers. So to say I'm not even going to show up was like this radical move. Um, and I had a few people that were very supportive to me in that process of notifying them of this change. And I'm so grateful for that. Um, and so I took a couple months off. And by the way, I was chronically ill from the time I was a youth, really, since my teen years. I was very sick. I had mono, then I had chronic fatigue syndrome. And so I felt in a lot of ways my youth was robbed from me that way. And so here I am, I think I was like 29, just about 30 at the time of this sabbatical. And once again, I wasn't feeling well, which is another reason why I decided this announcement, this pause in what I was doing was imperative for my health, even. And so after that sabbatical, I came back in. I didn't have a sense of I was where I needed to be or I needed to pick up where I left off. It was just a very strange feeling. Spiritually, I felt very rejuvenated, but physically, I still wasn't right. And again, to make a long story short, I think it was just 6 months to a year after that that I had the shock of my life after dealing with a chronic dry cough, almost like a smoker's cough. Never smoked a day in my life. A year or so of coughing like that, and heart palpitations and extreme fatigue led me to go get checked out. I was even blacking out at the time.
Wow.
I woke up on my floor of my apartment a few times, not knowing how long I had been there. And so things clearly just weren't right. My family was very concerned. And I had promised them one weekend, I'll never forget it. It was the weekend before Christmas. And I had promised them that I would go get checked out. I went to a medical clinic that was local to me at the time, and they were closed. They were always open when I was over there, but for that day, they were closed. And I literally heard a voice, Rachel, go to the hospital. Nobody was with me physically. And so I drove up the hill to the local hospital that was there. I really didn't make much of my symptoms. I was so accustomed to feeling lousy. It just didn't occur to me how sick I was. And so I get into the hospital and they do an x-ray, and it was winter. So a lot of people were coming in with coughs and things.
Right.
But I kind of downplayed it. Yeah, I've just been dealing with this. I don't know. Maybe it's allergies, post-nasal drip. I don't. And they took an x-ray and they came back and said, we can't see your left lung, like,
Wow.
at all. And they were showing me, the doctor there was showing me the image of my x-ray. And I could see what he was saying. One side was completely clear. The other side, you couldn't see. It was just gray.
Wow.
And so, again, I'll never forget it. I'm standing at this point when he's telling me what this could mean. I'm standing there and he literally says to me, it could be nothing or it could be cancer.
Ooh.
My knees buckled. I almost
And
fell to the floor. And this kind of surprised him. I'm like, well, you just told me I could have nothing or I could have, this is like a little shocking. Like, wouldn't you be shocked?
extremely.
And so he said, okay, well, I'm going to do another test. And so he did it. He did a CT, excuse me. And summarizing all of that, yes, it came back that I had a cancerous mass, and he could not be sure all the places that it could be. He said it could be on or in your lung, and it probably didn't start here. Like, wow. This
Whoa.
I'm 30, Leilani. I'm 30.
Wow.
And I've just had the three most dreaded words in succession that anybody could ever hear. And I I just didn't even know where to begin with the shock, with the questions. At the time, I was unemployed. I had been really struggling even to hang on to my little studio apartment because I had been without work. And that's a whole other story of just divine intervention. But so I ended up getting the copy of the tests from the doctor because I had told him, I'm like, I don't have insurance. I don't have a job. I'm really sick. I don't know what to do with all this information. And so he gave me copies of the tests. I went to a larger hospital the next morning in Boston, and it went just the way he said. They admitted me. They did all kinds of tests, even got me up in the middle of the night to do tests on me. And nothing came back conclusive. It was a whole lot
What?
of, yeah, it was a whole lot of, yes, you have cancer. We're just not sure what kind
Hmm.
in all the places that it could be. So if the diagnosis itself wasn't frightening enough, now I have the unknown of where else is it? How bad is it? What is it exactly? It was an unforgettable Christmas week.
Wow.
Um, Needless to say, lots of desperate prayers going up, lots of um, just crying, worrying, that next phone call, that next test. It was a very frightening time. Excuse me. They discharged me Christmas Eve afternoon with still no answers. So I was staying with my parents during all of this because I wasn't sure what was going to happen once they diagnosed me. And I was in and out of the hospital for a month. Finally, they said to me after about 2 or 3 outpatient biopsies of all different kinds, they said, You've been through enough, and what we want to do is one last major surgery." And
What?
yeah, so they wanted to do lung surgery, and that meant that it would be like 3 or 4 incisions. It was a big deal. It was a big procedure. And what they said was they would have pathology in the operating room this time. And if they couldn't determine for sure what type of cancer I had, they were going to remove my entire left lung.
Wow, I didn't even know you can live with one side alone.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So I went into the operating room that morning knowing that I could come out with just one lung. I wasn't sure how it was gonna go. And it seemed like just a minute later, but it was hours, that I was told the surgery, they were able to determine that I had Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Mm.
And that would mean lots of aggressive treatment. And they ended up, explaining all of that later in a consult. But what followed was um, really difficult, dark days of being very sick during treatment, very sick, more so than what they predicted. Um, and at the end of it all, after 6 months of chemo, I had a month of radiation. I had a 6-week break in between chemo and radiation. And then after radiation, I was finally done. They kept a very close eye on me, because my blood work was not looking good.
Mm.
Even with after the after each treatment, I had to have an injection to help bring my platelets back up, and mine weren't coming back up.
Whoa.
And I think it was even 2 months into the follow-ups that my oncologist was saying, "This isn't right. Um, we're gonna need to do another biopsy." And talk about a moment of boldness and empowerment just came over me, and I literally said, "No, that's not what we're gonna do." um, I had been through so much, and I just felt like after everything I've been through, I've earned the right to say no, to say I need to do this a different way somehow. I just cannot keep going through that. And um, I'll pause there, but that is where the rest of the story, how I ended up doing what I'm doing and everything else follows. But I'll just pause.
Yeah, now we got to keep going. Now I want to know what happens next. So basically, after all of that, you went through the chemo, you went through the radiation. Were they able to remove it, shrink it, or
Yes, they shrunk it by half.
okay? And so then after that, did you try like immunotherapy? I can't think that's how it's pronounced, or like some natural remedies?
So it was stable enough that they didn't recommend anything like that, and I didn't know anything about that at the time, but I was also getting the care that I was getting because of a program they have for people that are at poverty level. And I was, as I told you, I had nothing, and I had nothing for a while at that point. So I was getting the free care from the hospital and things like that. Anything that was alternative, none of that would have been covered.
Oh,
Yeah. So, yeah.
Mm. So so what happened after that? Were they able to completely shrink it or did you have to go back into surgery?
No, so they had shrunk it by half, and there was no sign of active disease. And so they called it remission, and I just
Okay,
in faith said, you know, it's done, it's clear. But they can't say that, liability reasons and everything.
right.
But I definitely knew from that point on that I was going to need to learn how to advocate for myself and look into this is where I started looking into natural remedies, um, especially when my oncologist said they wanted to do another biopsy. At that
Right.
point, I had already been through, I think, 4 biopsies plus the surgery to put the port in for the chest port in. So really like 5 surgeries by the time this was all said and done in less than a year.
Mm,
I did not want to do anything else. So
I bet.
I was also dealing with, and I had a lot of shame around this for a while, because after all, I'm a woman of faith and I believe in God, right? But I was dealing with tremendous amount of PTSD and
Bet.
anxiety. It got to the point, Leilani, where I think 3 months into my chemo cycle, I had to be sedated before they could even treat me because I was getting sick literally on the way to the hospital,
Oh, wow.
knowing what was coming, knowing what I would go through. That was
Mm,
to actually make me sick. And um, so that was the lowest point of all of this was when my anxiety got to a point where I couldn't even be like treated in the big open area where I don't know if you've ever seen like the area of the hospital where they usually treat people with chemo or different infusions, but it's usually this big open room and everybody just sits
mm.
in their recliner and the IV bags. I couldn't go there anymore for my treatment. They had a
Wow.
private room for me because I was so sick all the time and I was so nervous and horrified at the thought of someone, watching me get sick like that. So
Yeah.
they had to do excuse me, so many different things just to get me to the point where I could be treated.
Mm,
And so that was a really difficult 3 months when that was going on. But uh,
wow. That's
so
amazing that you are strong through that and now you want to help women with their health and I guess, their mental health and lead them through purposeful growth.
yeah.
Um, so you're teaching women to fulfill their lives without sacrificing their health. You're encouraging them to get those doctor's appointments and getting themselves checked out. Basically, is that what it is? And that's in your situation is what caused you to get on that mission?
So I am I'm all about helping empower women to take care of themselves, but to be their own advocate in that process, to make the decisions that align with who they are and their beliefs and their values. And so I am a huge advocate of natural remedies because that's where I left off with that story is when
Mm,
my oncologist wanted to do the biopsy again. I got busy. I got busy researching. Okay, what can I do to build my blood back up so that I don't have to have another biopsy or anything invasive? And I call it my coconut water story. But this is what happened. I found out that pure coconut water is something that's still used in some countries as a blood transfusion,
really?
that it is an exact match to human blood plasma. And so before it was trendy,
Wow, I
I
didn't know
was
that.
chugging it. Um, and in 3 months' time, that was the biggest change I made. I also started eating more organic foods. Um, and when I went back in 3 months, my oncologist is looking at my chart, and looking at me, and looking at my chart, and he says, I don't know what you're doing, but your blood work is better than it was when you were healthy.
Wow.
So keep it up. Yeah, you don't have to tell me twice. That put me on a lifelong journey of just, I see it as a big adventure. You know, I don't do what I do out of fear. I don't do what I do because I might get cancer if I don't do this or I do this. I'm so far removed from the identity of someone who's sick and weak that even as I tell you this story right now, I feel like I'm talking about someone else. But
Mm,
it was my life. I was sick. I was weak, and mercifully survived all of that. And today, in a lot of ways, I feel better than I did in my teen years.
wow.
So,
That's a blessing.
yeah. So, my mission is to really empower people to, well, I don't do the empowering. I just remind them that they are powerful. And I
Mm,
remind them who they are. And I remind them how they were created. And to take ownership and to take leadership of their own life, whether it's they're starting a business or they have a business, whatever it is, to step into that role, to own it, to love, who you are and what you do, and in service to other people, especially. Um, I help remind women that they can give themselves permission to do that, to
I
live
love that.
in the way that they were designed according to their personality, their gifts. And yeah, that's what I work with women to do.
I love that because a lot of us are people pleasers and we have a hard time saying no, like you were experiencing, you were just pulled in different directions and wasn't really, you was helping others, but you wasn't really pouring into yourself as much. Um, what would you say to encourage somebody else to do that? Because we all can get in a mind of struggling with that. Because even I have struggled with that. I always want to see other people win, and sometimes it's to a default of wanting to see them win before seeing myself win, you know, and having to break that cycle. I am just at that point this year to be putting myself first. But for other women that's going through that, what are some of those tips and strength things you told yourself to just step out of that mindset?
Well, first of all, I want to honor your battle and your transparency about it, because that's so key. That's where everything
Thank you.
starts, right? Is just realizing, I'm struggling here, and that is where it starts. Having someone that you can trust, someone that uh, can give you that non-judgmental space to process what you are feeling, to look at what you've been avoiding. Um, and this is something, Leilani, that, I can still fall into that trap myself sometimes, especially in business, right? You struggle with, or I have, and I do sometimes, just visibility. Like,
Yeah.
this is so and so's lane. What am I doing in it? The imposter syndrome. These are all
Mm, yeah.
very real things that I don't think they ever go away. I think it's a matter of leveraging it.
Mm,
Okay, that it's there, just like your ego, right? It's okay that it's there, as long as it's not making the decisions.
that's so true. As long as it's not making the decisions for you, it's going to be there. We just have to learn how to navigate it, basically.
Yeah.
Love that. You say your upbringing seems to play a big role in how you see your purpose and self-care. Can you share how your early experiences influenced your work and outlook today?
Sure, I'm happy to. So I was very loved and I was very cared for growing up. But I definitely saw that, as I said, my parents tended to take on a lot and
Mm.
put themselves last. And it was rather confusing at times because of, this being in service to other people and in service to God. How do you, especially as a young child, reconcile, okay, God is love, God loves me, but I need to, run myself into the ground doing these things for him and for
Mm.
people. And I remember, as I got older and I was starting to recognize these patterns for what they were, which was destructive, I remember saying to them, you know, even Jesus took a break. He like there was always somebody he could heal and there was always somewhere he could preach, but he knew when to pull away. And that became something that for me was, I guess, a guidepost, if you will. Like there is a need for self-care, there is a need for balance. One of my favorite stories also from scripture was about Elijah, right? He won all these battles, he did these great things, but then he got to a point where he just went into a cave. That's it, I'm done. I don't want to
Mm.
do anything else for anyone else. Um, but what happened? Angels came and they ministered to him. They fed him. Go ahead and rest. It's okay. And then later, when you're rested, this is what to do. And so I feel a lot of what I've learned, again, the hard way, is recognizing, where are my limits, if you will, and how do I navigate what I feel my purpose and my calling is with what I also believe I need as a human, as a soul that gets tired, that has moments of just needing something different, a break, a change of environment, whatever it is. These are all things that, as I learned, as I grew and evolved, even in my faith, begin to recognize I don't need to apologize for those moments. Those are moments that will actually strengthen me and thereby positively impact the people that I do serve. It's the whole oxygen mask analogy, right? The plane's going down, you get to put your own oxygen mask on first. Same thing. You're no good to anyone else if you can't take care of yourself first.
That is so true. Is that the mindset that you have so you can stay balanced and centered, like for your own daily habits?
Yeah, it has to be. It has to be. In the moment that it's not, the moment that I get away from that is the moment that I get run down or
Mm.
discouraged or both. Um, it has to be something that I live by. Everything that I teach has to be something that I live by. And I do my imperfect best to do that.
So, you've connected with a lot of incredible women through networking and your own podcast.
Yeah.
How has community played a role in your personal and professional growth?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, it's definitely played a role. I have met, like you said, some amazing people that, I want to emulate in a lot of different ways. And it also helps remind me of the impact that we have, even without realizing it. It's just anybody that you cross paths with. There's a reason they're there. There's a purpose for every encounter. And maybe you don't see it yet. Maybe I don't see it yet. It doesn't mean that there hasn't been some kind of imprint left. And yeah, community is something. As an introvert, I
So am
struggle
I.
with that in some ways. It's
Yes,
not my first thing in a lot of ways. Um, and there are certain, especially when it comes to business networking, there are certain networking groups I feel really good in, and there are others that just don't feel right.
right.
I've learned to pay attention to that as well.
Yeah, my anxiety will go crazy in the wrong rooms. It's like almost like a panic attack or something in my head, not
Yeah.
outward, but inward. So I definitely I get it. So networking has been tough for you as well as an introvert, because I've been meeting a lot of introvert women and we all kind of struggle with some of the similar things as far as the networking part. And that's part of the reason I started the podcast, to kind of step out of that comfort zone. What about you?
So, I have found it difficult to locate local networking groups. And
Mm.
I don't love being at the computer for hours and hours and hours. So I belong to a lot of networking groups, but I can count on one hand the number of groups that I actually show up for. Because by the time I'm done doing whatever it is I do in the day, I don't always want to come back and just do that. I also
Same.
have a lot of just personal challenges in life right now that make it so that I don't always have again, it's all about balance, the mental or emotional energy, the bandwidth, if you will,
Yes.
to sit through another meeting. I just don't like, nope.
I'm with you there. I am definitely with you there. Um, so if somebody would like to work with you or maybe gain some insight from you, they may be struggling with battling cancer themselves and struggling emotionally and don't even know who to talk to about it and want to keep pressing forward, but it's kind of hard because I can imagine if you're going through that and you have a business, are there things you want to accomplish? It can be draining on you mentally. How would somebody get in contact with you if they would like to just talk to you and hear more about your story and maybe get inspired a little bit more?
Yeah, so they can reach out to me if you want to put my website address and email address in the description of your video so they can find it easily. We can start there.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, reach out to me and we'll go.
Okay. Sounds great. And do you want to give out your Instagram before we get out of here?
Oh, sure. It's at R Tamillio.
R. Tamillio.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Um, well, Rachel, your story is one of strength and service and self-awareness. And thank you for reminding us that healing and success can coexist, that even in our most difficult seasons, there is still purpose. And to everyone listening, you can connect with Rachel Tamillio through her podcast and platforms to learn more about her mission and helping women create lives filled with meaning and balance. And remember, challenges don't define you, your choices do. And until next time, stay inspired, stay grounded, and keep building like a boss. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you so much, Rachel, for joining me today. I loved hearing about your story. That was a really great story.
Thank you for having me do that, Leilani. It's been so great to talk with you and meet you, and I love the presence that you have on your podcast.
Thank you so much. Well, until next time, thank you again for being a guest and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.